up and you done wasted a year doing what? Or do you just pick it up? All right, well, got to figure it out, made some mistakes, life goes on. Let me figure out life from this point.
You want to become best, you want to become champion, and now you want to say like you tired. Who cares? You tired or not? Nobody cares about you. He was tired, he had personal problem, family. Nobody cares.
We're all writing a book. What's your book look like? What does your fucking book look like? Like your life is a book. You got a bunch of chapters in your book, but when they close that book, how good was the book? How good was your book? What was the ending to your book?
Yeah.
What was really your work ethic like, and for how long did you stay disciplined?
Well, I mean, every day. I mean, since 20 years, it was an everyday process and trying to figure out strengths and weaknesses. For example, jumping ability. Now, my vertical was a 40, wasn't a 46 or 40, 45. My hands are big, but they're not massive. Right, so you got to figure out ways to strengthen them so your hands are strong enough to be able to palm a ball and do the things that you need to do. Quickness, I was quick, but not insanely quick. I was fast, but not ridiculously fast. Right, so I had to rely on skill a lot more. I had to rely on angles a lot more. I had to study the game a lot more, and it just never changed.
What I found is that winning doesn't happen on show day. It happens in the early mornings, painful workouts, long cardio sessions, and hungry nights. It happens in those moments of fear we all have when faced with a difficult goal, and then more so in what you make of that fear.
Yeah. Good day, my friends. Good day. I hope that you guys are doing amazingly. And I've missed you guys. I've missed you guys. So welcome back to the Success Blueprint, where I'm not going to say that I've got the answers, but what I will say is I've got the blueprint for you guys. And that's based on my experiences, the books that I've read, the people that I've led, and the people that I've learned from that led me. And I'm so excited to bring you guys an amazing topic today. So this past weekend, also, how are you doing? How are you doing? I'm gonna pop open my Factor cold pressed juice. It's not a smoothie, it's a cold pressed juice. But this one has carrot, orange, and ginger. I think it also has high source of vitamin A, C, and K. So I am very excited about this drink here to start off my day. I've been awake for a couple of hours taking care of some business stuff. But for those of you who have not seen, I just got back from a business trip to Puerto Rico. And by a business trip, I mean just a vacation, a great vacation with some other very amazing leaders in business and entrepreneurship. And I've learned so much and I've got so much value from it. And I want to be able to bring one key thing that I got out of that here today to you guys. So I'm extremely excited to be able to do that today. And so today we're going to talk about the leadership blueprint. Right. So I talk a lot about different blueprints. There's 5 blueprints to success. And one of those is leadership. And what I want to talk specifically about today, which by the way, leadership is my favorite blueprint to success. It is my favorite. I think some of the ones that you guys enjoy most are the leadership blueprints and then also the financial blueprints to success as well. So I try to bring those much more often than the accountability and goal setting blueprint. There's also the mentorship and strategy blueprint. And then finally, there's the business ownership and entrepreneurship development blueprint to success as well. But the 2 that I know that you guys like the most are the financial and the leadership blueprints. So I try to bring those ones to you guys. But I'm going to specifically talk today about leadership motivation. It kind of ties in the accountability, the mentorship and the leadership blueprints together, because we're going to talk about 2 very specific different pieces as we get into today. So I am excited about that. And if you guys are also excited and love just these podcasts, love these moments to just be able to listen in or watch, even if you're listening from Spotify, hey, but if you do love these kind of moments, feel very free. And I encourage you to actually like this video and also push it out to some of your other friends, family members, loved ones, entrepreneurs, business partners, friends, people that don't know much about business, people who love business, people who don't know much about leadership, people who are trying to develop. Or there's so many different people out there that can use this information that are looking for it. And so I'm very excited to be able to share with you guys. And if you are just as excited as well, you can please feel free to rate, comment, subscribe, and like this video and the podcast as well. It tastes just like carrot. I've been drinking these for the last about the last 2 months, and they're amazing. I get 4 per week, and then I also get 2 wellness shots as well, just to keep me very healthy. Because something has to keep me healthy. Something has to keep me healthy. So, Charming, we're talking about the 2 sides of leadership motivation. Charming, I've never heard leadership motivation used in a way as such. What does that actually mean? Well, I want to break it down to you in 2 different ways first. So let me pull up Paint. Let's go. All right. Let me also share my screen with you all. All right. So this is Paint. Okay, right? Now, you guys, obviously, I want to talk about 2 different things today. And as far as leadership motivation. So there's, like I said, there's 2 pieces to leadership motivation that I'm going to talk about today specifically. All right. One has to do with the types of motivation, and the other has to do with the types of the people that you lead. All right. So very specifically, the reason why I'm excited to teach about this is because this past week on the vacation that I took with those business leaders, we specifically talked a good majority about motivation. And I'm actually going to come back to that here shortly. But I think one of the biggest things I'm excited to do is connect this motivation piece to the types of people that you lead. All right. And so I actually gathered my team last night and had the chance to pick their brains, pull some information from them, coach them, and mentor them as well through this principle. And this is like even something that I connected while there, because one of my great leaders, Nicholas Bosley, he specifically brought up this concept I'm going to teach you here shortly. But I want to start over here because this is something that as a leader from the military, you learn. This is something that as a business leader, you hopefully you learn. And it's just the 3 types of people. There's 3 types of people that you lead. All right. Number 1, you lead yourself. Now, as I'm going through this, I love for anybody who's watching in the comments or in the on the chat to be able to put different things that they've learned about these things about themselves. So the first type of person that you will lead is yourself. You have to learn how to lead yourself. While you're on that path to leading yourself, there's so many different challenges that someone can have. Right? A lot of times when they are working on leading themselves, one of the huge challenges that they have is just their belief. Honestly, like their belief in whatever they do. If you are an entrepreneur and this is like your very first time stepping out to be an entrepreneur. If you are stepping into a leadership role as a manager, you've probably already had to overcome many different trials, tribulations, obstacles. But it's once you actually step into those kinds of roles where before you can lead anyone else in business and a job and a career in the military, whatever, you have to learn how to lead yourself. It takes a lot of self-discipline as well. And with having belief that you need, with struggling with belief a lot of times, which a lot of us do. Can I do this? Can I do this? Can I do that? Is this really meant for me? Am I meant for this? Like, do I have the ability? I haven't learned enough. I haven't come from a background that allows me to be able to do this, and that. I'll tell you, a lot of the business owners in my business specifically, because I'm going to say it is not, and it's not an easy business. It's very simple, but it's very challenging as well. It's very challenging on this specific piece of, can you lead yourself? And so there are so many people who come into business and they're struggling with just leading themselves. And a lot of times it's because of the belief. And then the other side of it is just that they actually have to learn very different things and assign themselves to it, which is where that self-discipline piece comes into play at. And now with self-discipline, you can want to be as disciplined as you want to, but there's always certain things that's going to pull you away from that discipline, especially when you're leading yourself, right? And so because leading yourself can be so challenging, oftentimes a lot of people, they end up failing at the self-discipline piece, or they end up not believing in themselves because of all the different failures that they are going to have. And so I love that. So that's the first type of person that you're going to lead. Now, the second type of person that you're going to lead is others. So leading others, this is the next step. Once you've led yourself, once you've learned how to lead yourself, and hopefully you've at least mastered it, right? You've at least become an expert at it. Now typically you step into leading others. And I love this principle just because once you're leading others, there's a perspective change. This is a perspective shift. Another great business leader of mine, Tyler George, specifically talks about how perspective shifts are the ultimate form of motivation, or the ultimate form of change as well. And I love that because going from leading yourself to leading others, a lot of times you actually have the same challenges. It's just a matter of the perspective that you have with those challenges. Right. And so when it comes to leading others, you're probably still leading yourself. That's probably very true. Very, very true. Where you're still learning how to lead yourself, especially now while you're trying to learn how to lead others. Now you have other people that matter to you, other households and personalities and responsibilities and people that you are now trying to learn how to lead. And there's so many different types of people, so many different, you've got your people who are extrinsically motivated and intrinsically motivated. You've got your extroverts, introverts. You've got your people from different cultures and backgrounds that you likely don't understand. So many different people that you're trying to now understand and lead. And there takes a huge human understanding to that. I talk about it a lot. The Marine Corps defines leadership as the sum of intelligence, human understanding, and moral courage. 3 of those, the sum. And so when it comes to leading others, you have to understand human beings for sure. And so what are some of the challenges that people can have with leading others? Well, yeah, they can believe that they can have those same challenges of belief as well as the same challenges of self-discipline, right? Can I actually lead others? Can I actually build other people up to their best potential? Am I worthy of having these people following me? Why do they look up to me? Why am I in this position for them? It's a very, very, very different, it's a very different perspective, but it's the same challenge. You have to get over your own self-doubt and you have to believe in yourself. And then the other piece is the self-discipline. Am I disciplined enough to do what I need to do all the time, the right way, every single time, show up the best version of me every single time, set the example every single time? That's a lot of pressure. And I don't know about you guys, that's a lot of freaking pressure. And so leading others is also, it's such a perspective shift, but the challenges are very much the same. And now I want to talk about the third type of person that you're going to lead. The third person that you're going to lead. And this is leading leaders. All right. And this is honestly one of my, I didn't draw that for you guys. This is leading leaders. All right. This is a third type. This is probably the ultimate form. I'm going to draw a little crown. Probably the ultimate form of leadership, where you are leading these people here who are learning to lead these people here. And so your leadership abilities are now going to be seen and noticed by other people learning how to lead. And while these people are learning how to lead, they look up to the people who are leading them to be and do the right thing all the time and set that example. But not only that, when you are leading leaders, it is your responsibility to make sure that you're leading the people that they're going to lead through them. So you have to understand not just the ones that are learning to lead others, but you also have to understand the people that they are leading. And you have to teach and train and motivate them, those individuals that they're leading, through them. Once again, a lot of the times the belief or the challenges become the same. Belief. Do you have, I'm leading people who are already great. We see leaders as phenomenal people. And even if you're building these leaders up, it's a fact that they're taking that step. It's a fact that they're out there. They've already learned to lead themselves. Now they're doing it with others. Can I really shape these leaders to be the best version of themselves for other people? I don't think I can. That's a lot of pressure. What qualifies me to teach other people? I've had my own experiences. You mean to tell me that, like, I also have to share my experiences with them and not only believe that they can overcome those same challenges that they're going to have, but also teach it to them in a way that they are going to truly understand when they probably have very different circumstances? I have to get these leaders mentally prepared for all of the issues and the problems and the struggles that their followers are going to have. That's a lot. I don't believe I can do that. A gentleman, another business leader, Nathan Wheeler, he talks about how just because of the leadership that was just beat into his brain, while going through the military and having his family, building his business of hundreds of entrepreneurs and leaders who lead other leaders, of all that, it's what keeps him up at night. Can I actually do this? I'll be honest with you. If you are a business owner running a business and you're not kept up at night, sometimes, and just your ability to for sure know that you're doing the right thing to lead. We're not talking about business leadership motivation. We're talking about leadership motivation. If you're a business owner and you have a business, you have a system, you're a leader. You must be a leader. And if it's not keeping you up at night, maybe you should ask your employees, your contractors, what they think about you and your leadership. Because maybe you are skipping out on the leading others and leading leaders section, only leading yourself. And so I love this principle that I've learned just all of my life. And I love being in a place where this is also something that is so heavily taught and at the forefront of our brains, because leading others is very challenging. And it's a very challenging piece to obtain, because it's a huge perspective shift from leading yourself to others. And once you've gone from leading others to now leading leaders, typically that process starts to step up. And it doesn't require as much of a perspective shift, because once you step into leading others, there are going to be natural leaders in there that are going to start to pull from you as you're learning. And so a lot of the times the lines between leading others and leading leaders can get a little bit blurred for you, because the two of them start to become the same thing. All right. But that huge perspective shift is massive between this. Now, that's the three types of people that you'll lead. So you'll learn how to lead yourself first, and then others, and then leaders. Now, what I want to talk about is the motivation side, and then I'll tie it all back. So this past weekend, I've heard, like I said before, Nick Bosley, one of my great business leaders, specifically talked about motivation. Right, like obviously, there's a lot of times during these three pieces where individuals are struggling with their motivation to continue building and developing and building on themselves and working with people and working with families and learning and going get the training and reading. I mean, it's everything where the motivation, it comes and goes, right? Motivation comes and goes. It comes and goes. You can be very motivated to go. You could see, let's say you're a business owner running your own franchise store. Or you could see your numbers, like your P&Ls. You see all this stuff, and it could either depress you, make you sad if numbers are down, or you could see that in it. It could be like, hey, we need a lot of fire on our butts to get this done. And you might be able to motivate everyone. That motivation is only going to last so long. It might not last a few days, maybe a couple of weeks. Sometimes it might last a little bit longer. We were talking about just the three levels of motivation, or I believe the top one is situational. There's a situational event that causes you to have this burst of motivation. All right, situational event. I'm gonna draw this triangle. This is not the triangle that we talked about. This wow, that is a sucky triangle. Right, you've got situational here, where an event just causes you to have motivation, right? And it gets that spark flying and gets it going, right? Some events can be, for instance, or a situational thing can be, for instance, you were to look at your own numbers, your business ratios and things like that. And you're like, oh, this is awesome. We just had a positive month. I want to encourage everyone else to go and do great things. All right. Then we've also got inspirational. Now, I will say that situational is the shortest form of motivation. It lasts it's the biggest, it's the shortest burst. All right. It doesn't last as long. But inspirational lasts much more. This is where and now this I do specifically remember Tyler George speaking about this one. I cannot remember the name of the very first one, so don't quote me on it too much. But the second one I remember being inspirational. And so with inspirational, that's where someone comes and inspires you, and that has an amazing amount of motivation. But once again, it's not as short a situational an event and things like that. It definitely lasts longer, right? But that's where they can come and fire you up, and you can go to a speech and you can read a book or a podcast, and it just fires you up and gets you going, right? Then you've also got the other, and this is, if I can spell it correctly, perspective. So then there's also a perspective shift. All right. Now, this is the biggest piece for me. What he says is that perspective shifts have the largest and the longest lasting motivation. And I love that because unfortunately, and this is something I was speaking to my team about last night. Unfortunately, when we have a perspective shift, like an actual shift in the way we think, and we associate this thing with this thought process, and we now change that perspective over here, and this is now what we believe. All right, that perspective shift is so huge because it takes a moment of total understanding of yourself, total vulnerability, and also total clarity of what it is that you want in order to have a perspective shift. And when you have that perspective shift, it lasts so much longer. I'm not saying that it won't stop, right? I won't say that it won't stop. However, that perspective shift lasts eons longer. And it always comes from a big event. Now, in my business, we like to host big events, right? But unfortunately, from big events that can happen, most of the time it is something unfortunate, something that causes us to look at ourselves, completely open up and be vulnerable with ourselves based on the event or the situation that's just happened. Not just like the situational, it's like, hey, this little thing happened. And again, that first at the top of the pyramid, I can't remember exactly what his word was. But this huge, massive thing happening has caused us to look into ourselves, be very open and vulnerable with ourselves, and also to have full clarity of, well, this is what I don't want to happen ever again. And so you change the association of whatever it is to this new perspective, and that is going to last much longer than any other sort of motivation. And I love that one. I love that. And so I want to really quickly. Can I make this bigger? There we go. All right. And so now I want to talk about the two different sides of motivation after kind of learning and understanding the perspective shift. So you've got two different pieces. Oh, get big. What are you doing? Why'd you get so thin? There we go. All right, so we've got the two different sides. So the first piece we have is motivation. Obviously, motivation, right? Motivation is what's going to keep you pushing. It's going to be what encourages you. It's going to be what gets you up in the morning. It's going to be what helps you to believe in yourself. It's going to be what guides you and helps you to have that self-discipline. All right. You got it. That's easy. But then what Nicholas Bosley taught me is there's a certain point in time where this motivation transitions into the other thing. And this is responsibility. Responsibility. Where it's no longer about whether you have the motivation to do this or not, right? If you don't believe in yourself, motivation can fix that. But there's a certain point in time where it's not about, well, you don't have the ability to not believe in yourself. You've got a responsibility. You've got someone that you're responsible for. You got something that you are responsible for creating, for making impact, for changing, for whatever. And so it takes a huge perspective shift to go from having motivation or using motivation to get you moving and get you going to responsibility. It takes a huge perspective shift. Now, I'm not going to say that responsibility is the best thing in the world, right? Responsibility comes with responsibility. All right. There's different things that you're now responsible for ensuring happens. And where you might run out of motivation and quit, you can't run out of responsibility. I mean, you can't just, is it much less likely that you're going to quit while you have responsibility? Much less likely. And so I love this because at a certain point you do. As a business owner, maybe while you're building your business, it's just you. And you need the motivation to continue going when you're having those heartaches, those hard times. But once you've got that business built and you've got, employees or contractors or people who look up to you and followers and things like that, it's about them, their families, their lives, their livelihood. And that's where the responsibility piece comes into play at. And so I want to talk about this because this is something that I was able to connect. When it comes to, let me clean this off. When it comes to leading yourself, in order to learn and push through the challenges while you're leading yourself, you must use motivation. That's easy. We know it. You have to have motivation when it comes to leading yourself. And that motivation comes and goes. And that's why leading yourself is so much of a challenge. But when it comes to leading others and leading leaders, you now have a responsibility. You can't run out of motivation. When you have to get things done, when you have to get people successful, when you have to help people out, it's not a matter of motivation anymore. It's not a matter of, oh my God, I don't feel like doing this. You have a responsibility to it. You do. And so remember how I said before, in order to shift from leading yourself and move into the next realm of leading others and leading leaders, you have to have a massive perspective shift. Just like I said, in order to switch from motivation to responsibility, you have to have a massive perspective shift. You have to have a massive perspective shift for both of these, for either one of the two of them. And I believe that understanding this here will change the way that you start to believe, because one ends quickly, the other, you don't have an option but to be successful. You don't have an option but to be. Some days you can feel like maybe I don't need to be successful. You don't have an option but to be successful when you have a responsibility to others. And I'll be honest, and this is something I told my team last night. I said, whenever I started in business, the reason why I started in business was because I've seen so many people not presented opportunities because of the color of their skin, because of their origins, because of where they come from, because of the fact that they don't have the ability, the money, the time, the resources to. And just once, what I want to be able to lead other leaders, build them and develop them so that way they can go make impact in the world. So the response, from day one of starting in my business and building my business here, my devotion was to leading others and leading leaders. I needed to get to that part as soon as possible. I could not sit by and try and learn I need to learn how to lead myself. I couldn't sit there and tell myself, okay, can I actually build a business? I didn't have the time to not believe in myself. I didn't have the time to not have self-discipline. I didn't have the time to worry about whether I felt motivated or not. I didn't have the time. But a lot of us, a lot of people, a lot of business owners, entrepreneurs, a lot of new leaders, a lot of management, a lot of parents, a lot of so many different people ruin their ability to have success immediately because they stand by, they wait. They think in their minds, oh, I don't believe that I can do this. I'm not self-disciplined enough. I don't have enough skills. I don't have enough resources. I don't have enough motivation. I need someone else to feed me motivation. And that is great. I'm not saying that that's wrong. I'm not saying that at all. What I am saying is the sooner that you force yourself to have a perspective shift from either motivation to finding who and what you're going to be responsible for, the sooner that you go from the challenges of just leading yourself to the new challenges, and having that perspective shift of now leading others and leading leaders, you have a responsibility that's going to drive your success. That is the reason why starting off in business for me, I was so much more successful, because I skipped past the I don't have the motivation to potentially do this sometimes. And I'll say I'm not motivated all the time. I'm not motivated all the time. I'm not. Many times I have not been. Have I thought, yeah, I might quit building up my business and go back to the 9-to-5 job? Have I thought about that? Yes. But it was always the underlying responsibility that kept me going. When you have a responsibility, I'm not saying that you will never be motivated or that you can never use motivation, because you can't. Responsibility is what's the underlying factor. That's the heartbeat, right? That's the heartbeat. It's the motivation that makes your heartbeat spike. That's the only difference. It's the motivation that makes your heartbeat spike, but it's always there. When you don't have the responsibility and all you have is motivation, well, your motivation can give you bursts, but it's not a heartbeat. It's burst. And so the reason why some people come into businesses, into entrepreneurship and take off is because they've already found that they have a responsibility to something. And because they have a responsibility, that doesn't go away. Responsibility doesn't go away. Motivation does. And so if you are trying to build your own mindset, think about this in two different ways. One, either you must figure out a way to find what your motivation, what's current, what is it currently that you need motivation for in your life? Look at it and ask yourself. And first I'll say, I don't want there to have to be motivation in order to get me going. And now figure out, how can you have a massive perspective shift? Look at something. It is always something. It's most often something very negative in your life, something that you're gonna have to be extremely vulnerable about, something that you have to be extremely clear about, and something that you have to want more than anything in the world. You have, in order to have that perspective shift. So you have to take that mindset of, I need motivation to do this, and look at something and say, if I don't do this, this will not happen for these people, for these individuals, for this. You can use your team. You can use your employees. You can use their families. You can use your family. You can use your friends. You can use you can use whatever cause or impact that you'd like to have in the world, whatever it is. You can have it. I don't know what that is. But you have to figure out what that responsibility is too. And then you have to be responsible. It's not a matter of motivation. If you get here and you notice sometimes you're thinking that you know what, I don't really feel like doing it. You have not figured out that responsibility yet. You haven't figured out the true responsibility. So that's one thing you can do. Force yourself to have a perspective shift from motivation to responsibility. Or two, force yourself to get into a position where you start leading others. Force yourself to get into a position. It might sound scary. It might sound challenging. It might sound tough, because you probably don't even know how to lead yourself. Well, along the way, you're going to learn. Along the way, you'll learn. But at least you have now built a responsibility that's going to require you to not stop. You won't be able to. You must continue. There's not going to be a moment where you're actually going to say, I quit, because you always got that heartbeat. You must. Once you start leading others, you start to actually build an actual responsibility. Build relationships with them. Actually genuinely care about those others that you're leading. You genuinely care about them more than you probably genuinely care about yourself. I promise you're going to build a responsibility. So it's going to take a massive perspective shift in order to switch from leading yourself to leading others. Huge. But this is one of the two ways in order to get you pushing and driving towards something without ever stopping to need motivation. Oh, come on, man. Oh man, come on. Leadership motivation is huge. It is huge. And I love that the motive that Nicholas Bosley said that there's a moment where your motivation turns to responsibility. And at that point, it's not an option of whether or not you're going to be successful. You must, because you also need to make others successful. And so waking up in the mornings, I don't want to do it, but I have to. I have to, because otherwise, and I'll say too, a lot of us, our families are the reasons why we do the things that we do. Which means that you should already have responsibility, just initially, right there. But do you really feel it sometimes? Because if you end up losing that motivation, if you actually lose that motivation, there's no responsibility there. If you lose the motivation and it's still tough for you to get up and do what you have to do, and you still are struggle with it, and you still don't sometimes, you don't actually feel the responsibility. You don't actually feel the responsibility. I can tell you right now, for myself, since I didn't have the words, to put into it. I understood, 3 types of people that you lead. I understood that you need motivation, but it was when I was taught, and when Nicholas Bosley said there's a certain period of time where motivation turns responsibility, it all clicked for me. It all clicked of why and how I've been able to continue pushing on even through all the adversity that I've had in my life and in my business, in my career, in my time. The reason that I've always continued to push on. For instance, let's say I'll go back to mental health. So I told you guys I have a mental health podcast. Right? I struggled so much with mental health, and I needed motivation to pull me out of it so much. The hospitals, the ideations, the thoughts, the actions that I did. And it wasn't until I actually started the mental health podcast that I started to feel a responsibility. So I felt like I'm still living. At that point, I did not want to, I'll be honest, but I'm still living. And there are other people who are struggling just the same, if not worse. And I feel like I have a responsibility to be able to share my story with them, so that way it pulls them out of where they are. So that way, maybe it gives them a community, or maybe I can let other people know what it feels like on the inside that are working with or living with or cares for someone else that are living in the same way as me. I felt like I had a responsibility. And that is that. I'll be honest. When I look back at it now, that is one of the biggest reasons of why I have stayed away from suicidal ideations, have stayed away from self-harm, have forced myself to continue to grow and progress, because I then had a responsibility to impacting someone's life. And I actually truly believed that it was my responsibility above anything else. My team now, the business that I run now, the entrepreneurs that I'm leading now, they have so many different things going on in their lives all the time. I have a responsibility to them. I cannot. If I were to wake up and say, "Oh my God, I don't want to do this today. I'm not feeling like it." The people that I care about would not have the success that they are going to have. They will not become the people that they are going to have, because it is my responsibility. It's mine. Yeah, and I don't have any other option but to get up and do it every single day, every time. No other option. I don't care whether I and it was whenever I started in building my business now, and I looked at this as an opportunity to help other people get into a position that they actually deserve to be in for them and their families, is when I looked at that the responsibility was established. I didn't even have, team members. I didn't have people that I even could lead yet, but I knew in the future I would. And so this is another thing. I knew in the future that I would. And so the responsibility was already there for me to do what I have to do right in this moment. So that way, once I do have those people, I can lead them effectively and I can make sure I'm always there for them. Oh man, I guess in that case, I actually had a responsibility. While I was leading myself, I had a responsibility to developing myself. I had to develop myself. So I did it. You can have responsibility within leading yourself. Is it probably much harder to make that perspective shift? Yeah, it's going to be much more challenging to make that perspective shift into leading yourself using responsibility versus motivation, because a lot of times you're gonna put yourself after everyone else. But if the only way that I could put myself after everyone else is by putting myself first in this moment, then that's my responsibility. Oh man. That's some powerful stuff. Two types of leadership motive, or the two sides of leadership motivation. The types of people you're going to lead, and then actually that motivation within itself. So I challenge you guys to go read a book, watch an article, watch a blog, watch videos, watch other podcasts, go to different events, do big things, put yourself out there. That was another piece that I talked to them about last night. How do you induce a perspective shift? You have to put yourself in a risky situation. You have to put yourself in a risky situation. Put yourself in a situation, one of which you would not otherwise be in. It'll challenge you. I'm not saying every single time it'll challenge you and make you have a massive perspective shift. It wouldn't be massive. It would only be inspirational, if so. But you'll be around it in one case, in one situation, in one way or another, depending on how you look at it. Maybe putting in all your resources to go and develop yourself and still failing or not having the things, maybe that causes a perspective shift. Where now you're like, I don't have enough money to do this thing to develop me and my family. That might cause a perspective shift. Oh man. I really thank you guys for letting me be able to speak to you and encourage you and motivate you. If you clicked on this video and you're still here, or still listen to this podcast, let me know in the comment section down below, what of this resonated with you the most? When have you had your own perspective shifts? What has been that piece that allowed you to go from, I need motivation in order to do anything, to, I have nothing but responsibility to the people that I love and care about? I'd love to know those answers in the comments and the Q&A poll on Spotify. Let me know. But with that being said, guys, thank you for making it all the way to the end. And I encourage you guys to go and do amazing, massive things. I look forward to hearing all of it in the comments. And I shall see you tomorrow for Juneteenth. And we're going to have a very great podcast episode tomorrow. So have a beautiful day. Take great care of yourself. And don't let anything stop you, regardless of what it is. Regardless. Take care. Adios.
If you can take every opportunity you have to bring yourself closer to your goal, win every one of those opportunities, all while becoming more resilient in the process, how can you lose? That's an exciting opportunity.
I became obsessed with being the baddest that God ever created. Am I that? I don't care. I believe it. And I was trying to tell him, once you become obsessed with something, it's okay to be unbalanced for a while. It's okay. Don't be all this stuff people say. You got to be balanced. To be the best in the world at what you do. It's not about being a Navy SEAL, people. The best at what you do, you have to be unbalanced to find every bit of energy and strength that you have to pull it off.
How bad do you want it? There's two options. To continue forward, pushing upward. And if you do, that dream is given birth, and forever you will live in the reality of it. If you stop, quit, throw in the towel, I promise you there's no distance you can travel far enough to find that dream again. For it is dead. And in its death, it's replaced by regret.
What's the least amount of sleep you played a game on?
One word to describe SGU would be opportunity.
It gives me an opportunity